What's going on, everyone? So Patrick Beverley over on his Pat Bev Podcast loves to talk some talk, right? He's still in the NBA. He loves to kind of troll, say some stuff. And he recently said something about the Celtics as well as Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown as a duo and whether or not they could win an NBA championship. Here is exactly what he had to say. When asked if he thinks the two will ever win a title together, Beverley responded with no. Too much of the same player. They don't complement each other enough. Now, Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown have been one of the better duos in the league. They have reached the conference finals, seems like every year, right? Or they're in the NBA finals, and it just seems like they can't get over the hump. Now, here's the reality, though, is I don't think Patrick Beverley is wrong. I don't. And I've even relayed this, and I've even talked about this, and I've talked about the issues that I have with the Celtics, and every year I've said and relayed, like, hey, this is why I don't think the Celtics will win, and they have lost every time. It's the reason why I thought the Celtics would lose to the Heat. They lack mental toughness. They're too predictable on the offensive end. It's a lot of you go, I go, you go, I go. Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum are very similar players. They have a lot of the same styles, and unless you have the right complementary pieces around them, they're not going to, I just don't see them winning anything. Now, it's not impossible for them to win. They are a good enough duo to where, a couple things fall your way, all of a sudden you're in the NBA championship, right? It's not like they're so bad no one would see it coming. I don't think it's impossible for them to win, right? Like Patrick Beverley was giving a definitive, right? No, Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown won't win. I don't know if I'd necessarily say they won't ever win. I think it's very unlikely. Right? Because we have seen things just pan out. I mean, like the Toronto Raptors. If the Toronto Raptors don't have just everything kind of fall their way perfectly and then get into the NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors and basically the entire Warriors team falls apart, Toronto's probably not winning that NBA championship, right? They're not beating that Warriors team with a healthy Kevin Durant and whatnot, right? It's just not going to happen. Even Miami's run. Right? Does anyone really think that Miami would have beaten the Milwaukee Bucks if Giannis doesn't get hurt and he's the normal Giannis throughout the course of that series? Probably not. Right? Could it happen? Of course. Could Toronto have maybe won? Of course. Things happen, but realistically, they probably wouldn't have. So, could the right dominoes fall into place where the Celtics could finally get over that hump and win that championship, right? Could they end up meeting the right team in the Western Conference, or some circumstances happen that they win a championship? Of course. I just don't think, unless they restructure this entire roster around Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, that they're going to be able to win. They think, for whatever reason, that Kristaps Porzingis was the answer. Like, they needed more offensive output. Like, they needed an upgraded version of Al Horford. And I just don't think that that was the case. The Celtics were the only team in the league that were top 5 offense, top 5 defense. Couple issues with the Celtics. One is they really lack mental toughness. We have seen that time and time again, right? And because they are so predictable, and because they are so easily swayed off of the things that work, right? Like, for example, the Warriors series when they played each other in the finals. I picked the Warriors to win because I believed when push got to shove and things got tough, the Celtics would panic and get off the things that were working, and the Warriors wouldn't. The Warriors are a well-oiled machine. Whether they're up 20 or down 20, they're going to play the same way, right? The Celtics, you'll see, when they're moving the ball and it's this free-flowing offense and it's not just sticking to isolations of Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, right? All of a sudden, the Celtics are nearly impossible to beat. Right? And yet it seems like when things start going bad, instead of continuing that play, it's let's get Jayson Tatum the ball and let him isolate for 5 straight possessions. Or let's let Jaylen Brown isolate for 5 straight possessions. And it's not working. Right? And then top of that, they don't have any real true leader in that locker room. Jayson Tatum is not a leader. He said it himself. Right? And Jaylen Brown, he's more of the alpha dog. He's more of the leader. But Jayson Tatum is the better player. And they're so close and such good friends that they don't really push each other the way that you need them to, right? And the fact that the Celtics got rid of Marcus Smart, I truly believe is going to hurt them more than they realize. Marcus Smart was the leader. He was the vocal guy. He was the dog in the locker room. He was the extension of the coach. Joe Mazzulla, I don't believe, is the right coach to take the Celtics over the top. Now, maybe he evolves into that. Maybe he becomes that. But what I saw last year, I don't think he's anywhere close. And that doesn't mean he's a bad coach. I just think you need to have a very specific personality as well as a very specific design and schemes to really make this version of the Celtics NBA champions, right? Ime Udoka had success and was able to lead them to the finals because he is that alpha. He is that dog. He's not afraid of that confrontation. He's not afraid to tell you to go F yourself, even if you're the star player, right? He's the guy, and he was really good at figuring out the schemes with this current roster. I don't think Joe Mazzulla is going to be willing to do that. He's too passive. He's not willing to have that confrontation. They need a coach that has no issues basically telling you, no, we're not just going to have you touch the ball 5 straight possessions, Jayson Tatum. Jaylen Brown, no, we're not going to have you touch the ball 5 straight possessions. We need to play within the schemes and stick to what was working, right? And I just don't think this current roster with the Celtics is going to be able to do that. And I getting rid of Marcus Smart kind of forces Jayson Tatum or Jaylen Brown to kind of step up and become the leader. The problem is that doesn't mean that they will, right? That doesn't mean some guys just aren't built that way. Jayson Tatum is a ridiculous talent. He's, top, I don't think he's top 5 right now, but I think he is very close to being top 5. The problem is he just disappears when they need him. How many times have we seen him over the course of these Celtics runs where, he has 30 through 3 quarters and then just completely absent and disappears in the 4th, right? I think he needs somebody that can push him to that next level, right? Like LeBron James needed Dwayne Wade. He needed Dwayne Wade to basically show him how to win, show him how to be a leader, show him a lot of things that were very important and integral to LeBron kind of taking that next step. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody needs that, right? Everybody needs that mentor, that guidance, right? One of the reasons Phil Jackson is so praised by guys like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal. Think of all of the personalities that Phil Jackson has had over the years. Pat Riley too, right? Think of all the personalities. And they've had success because they're not afraid of confrontation. They know how to handle and maintain things, but they are leaders. They're guys that can get across their points, make it digestible, teach and guide these stars into how to become winners, how to take that next step, how to become the next great. And I think Jayson Tatum needs that. He needs somebody to come in. I think that they need to go get even just a veteran guy that the problem is there's not really many out there that are to the level of Jayson Tatum. Dwayne Wade would have been perfect, right? If you could convince Dwayne Wade to come out of retirement and just be like a Udonis Haslem, right? And just be in Jayson Tatum's ear the whole time because they're going to lack leadership. And Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown are too similar. They're the same prototypical type player, which is fine. But again, you need the right pieces. Instead of getting Kristaps Porzingis, I honestly believe that they should have went and got Chris Paul. I do. I don't think they needed an offensive, better version of Al Horford who is more injury prone. I think they needed that vocal leader, that guy that takes no nonsense, that has that motor and drive to win, but can also maintain and keep everyone involved. Yes, Chris Paul is very injury prone. That would have been a concern, but Chris Paul could have been that leader. You wouldn't have needed him too heavily throughout the course of the regular season. You wouldn't have had to rely on him too much, but come playoff time, he could have been the guy that divvied it up, right, and put it all together. Right? The guy that made sure that it wasn't getting too ISO heavy. And if you were going to run an ISO play, that Jayson Tatum got the ball in his spot rather than just, dribble between the legs a couple times, step back three, right? It's like, no, get down on the block, abuse this guy, get to work, get to your spot, let's go. What are you doing? Quit standing around, get down on the block, get to your spot. Why are you over here? Get over here. They need somebody to do that. Because what ends up happening is you see the Celtics fall into this trap where it's like Jayson Tatum comes out to the three and they just give the ball to him and then everyone just kind of stands around and he does this little fancy work and then he's going to go do a step back three, and if he doesn't have it, that's the end of the offense, right? They need somebody or something to change in this culture if they're going to have it work with Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. Right? Again, does that mean that there's no way that they're ever going to win? No. Again, circumstances happen. Some things fall the right way. Maybe Jayson Tatum takes that next step, and he does. Maybe he doesn't disappear in the fourth quarter. Maybe this year, Joe Mazzulla is able to get them to kind of stick to the script and not kind of default to the old habits. Maybe they don't crumble mentally when it matters. I mean, it's not something that is unobtainable or something that they can't figure out and overcome. They just have to figure that out and overcome it. Or, again, they need the right dominoes to kind of fall into place for them to win. Look, I said it before, I truly believe that they should have traded Jaylen Brown. I think you need to trade Jaylen Brown and go get some more complementary players or that other star that makes more sense for Jayson Tatum, right? Like, they need somebody that is comfortable and okay closing down the stretch, right? Like if they could have gotten a like Damian Lillard or something like that instead of, which I don't think they would have been able to, but if they could have gotten like a Dame over Chris Porzingis, yes, again, they don't really need more offense, but what Damian Lillard does is he provides a guy that is not going to be mentally, is not going to fall apart mentally down the stretch, a guy that can really close games, a guy that can push these guys to the next level. Like they need somebody like that. They need that veteran that is an equivalent to these guys, or they need to turn Jaylen Brown into something like that. I do. Like if Joel Embiid becomes available, and I know Joel Embiid has a history of just disappearing at times, but I think that would make more sense, right? Because then at least Jayson Tatum now kind of becomes the solo wing, and now you have that big, the big little, I guess, as Shaq likes to put it, where you have basically, your forward and your center, your dominant center. You could always move Kristaps to the 4 if you needed to, because he likes to stretch the floor and shoot anyways. Plus, Joel Embiid likes to play out on the perimeter a lot anyway. And then turn Jayson Tatum or Jaylen Brown into that. I think that at least that would be more comparable. Like that roster would make a little more sense. But I just think you have two players that are the exact same way that basically are just more ISO heavy than anything. And, and instead of keeping that free flowing offense, when things start going a little rough, which all things do, you see them start to crumble. I mean, even this last playoff run, right? When you saw them swinging the ball, and then it finds, 5 or 6 players, and then it gets to like Al Horford in the corner, or it gets to Derek White or whatever, right? And you just see the ball just swinging constantly, and they find the best shot. All of a sudden you look up and you're like, man, they're up 30. It's like, man, because the ball's not sticking. When you fall into the trap of isolation heavy, you bailing out the defense. You're helping the defense know what they need to do. All right, it's just let Jayson Tatum go one-on-one and then double team him before he takes the shot or whatever, right? Or, put some pressure on Tatum and let him, fall apart, or put some pressure on Brown and, he struggles to dribble. Like, it's just, I think that after this year, I think you see what this looks like this year. You already committed to Kristaps Porzingis. You're already in that position, right? See how this looks. If it goes the way I think it will, look, I think they're going to be one of the top 2 teams in the Eastern Conference again, just because I think that talent-wise they're just far and away better than everybody else. But again, if they don't win this year or they're not close again and then they lose to, Miami or something like that in the conference finals, or even if they lose to like Milwaukee, it's like, at what point do you say, all right, this clearly isn't working. It's time to look elsewhere, right? And again, you can't just trade Jaylen Brown just to trade Jaylen Brown, which is kind of the tough part for the Celtics, because it's like, we're not just going to give Jaylen Brown away, but it's like Kevin Durant made sense, right? Kevin Durant's not a leader, but like when there were those talks of like trying to trade Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant, like I was like, okay, I get that. That makes sense, right? Like, because he's a guy that can close down the stretch. He's a guy that's been there in those moments. He's a guy that is not going to disappear. He's a guy that, is super efficient, right? So even if Jayson Tatum kind of has his struggles or whatever, you can have Kevin Durant and trust Kevin Durant to come through. And I think Kevin Durant being better than Jayson Tatum would elevate and make Tatum better. The problem with Jaylen Brown is he's not better than Jayson Tatum. So he's not able to push and elevate Jayson Tatum more. So I think it's kind of a rock and a hard place. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. How do you feel? Agree with me? Disagree with me? Do you think that they can win? Do you think that they won't? How do you feel? Love to hear it. Let me know.